Coming up on Chopper's Political Podcast.
The bottom line is, deep down, we all know that if you have a big cooked breakfast every single day, you're going to put on a lot of weight.
Welcome back to Chopper's Political Podcast, where I bring you the best guest gossip, news and stories, normally from our studios in the heart of Westminster, but right now, of course, in Manchester. I'm here at the Conservative Party conference, where the party's finally pulled out some policies to try and take on Reform and Labour, who are ahead of them in the polls on ECHR withdrawal, Climate Change Act being abolished, and other measures too. But while I'm here in Manchester, I thought, who else can I go and see? I went for a little wander. Hello, I've got bored of the Tory party conference. Let's put the past away. I fancy a pint. Do you like geese? How about strawberry ducks? Here's a strawberry duck pub. Let's see who's inside. Lucy, how are you? How are you? Good to see you. It's your local pub.
This is Strawberry Duck.
Strawberry duck.
Yeah.
The geese are outside. The ducks in here. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have a drink. So, here we are. With me now in the Strawberry Duck pub is Lucy Powell, who's running to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party, and voting opens this week. Lucy Powell, thank you for asking us to your pub.
It's great. I'm really glad you're at the Strawberry Duck here in Clayton. It's a fantastic pub.
I last interviewed you in a pub.
You did a long time ago.
Red Lion pub.
Yeah.
Of my podcast. Pubs?
Yeah. From Westminster out to East Manchester.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
It's great to be here. We're here, of course, professionally, because the Tory party have a conference in your backyard in Manchester Central. Do you feel a bit sorry for them? I mean, you've been there, you've been through all those years of being in opposition, and now they're starting that journey, it feels like.
I do feel a bit sorry for them, yeah. I mean, look, politics is just moving incredibly fast, isn't it? So who knows what's around the corner. I guess the difference for us was when we were having a difficult time in opposition and weren't seen as that relevant, we actually had a huge party membership. So our party conferences were massive.
Felt busy, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they mattered.
I know. Whereas they've got kind of worst of all worlds, because there doesn't seem to be anybody here. Like the restaurants and the bars actually moan about Tory conference coming now because it clears the city centre and it doesn't actually fill it with customers.
Security and the concerns about that. This is your Strawberry Duck. You've been coming here for a few years, have you?
Yes, this is a mainstay for us. We come and have gatherings here. In fact, we were here not long after the election. We had a little thank you party here for local members Sunday afternoon. We were sort of dancing on the dance floor at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Bench here behind.
Yeah, no, it's a great pub.
What's your favourite drink?
Well, I'm such a lightweight now, so I just like the zero beers.
Zero beers.
Yeah, alcohol gives me a headache.
Yes.
I know that's.
We're getting on a bit, aren't we?
I know, a woman of a certain age, maybe a bit hormonal, can't really cope with it.
So why are you standing to be deputy leader? I mean, why are you doing this? Why are you backing yourself to be this person representing 200,000, 300,000 members? Because
I think we can do better as a Labour government. I think we can tell a much stronger story than we've been telling. I think we can convey better whose side we're on, what is the purpose of this Labour government. I think we've had kind of a narrower and narrower set of people disconnected from our communities that we sort of represent, taking some of the decisions, and I think that's been to our cost, really. So I want to help us succeed and do better.
You never thought you'd be in this position, did you? You were planning for an autumn period of working out, getting issues through the House of Commons. You're the guy, you're the minister, the woman in charge of all that as leader of the House of Commons, and then suddenly you weren't.
Suddenly I wasn't. Politics changes fast, you know that. You report on these things. Yeah, I was planning for the second King's Speech. You know, I'd done the first King's Speech for the Labour government in 15 years. I was really proud of a lot of the legislation we've done in the last 15 months. I was working through and planning for the next one. And then suddenly, I had a day in between where I was sort of thinking about maybe booking some holidays. And then instead, I found myself in this.
That phone call. Well, where were you when you got the phone call from the PM?
I was actually here in Manchester in my constituency office.
Hi, Keir, how are you?
Well, you know how these things work, because what actually happens is, Angela, we got the news about Angela. Then one of my team said, it was the briefing that they're doing a bigger reshuffle. It was fairly soon after that. So when when the phone call comes, and actually I got a withheld number on my phone, and I turned to my team in Manchester and I said, this is me getting the sack. Sure, I knew because I knew it was that early, and I answered the phone and it said Downing Street switch. So I was like, well, here we go.
You gave quite a punchy statement out there. You gave all your reasons on social media. We know you were unhappy to lose your job.
I wasn't happy to lose. It was a job I really enjoyed. You know, I was enjoying putting together that legislative programme. It's really shaping our agenda, modernising the House of Commons, you know, working with backbenchers and what I was doing. It was a job I really enjoyed. But you know, equally, I'm old enough and wise enough to think about the upsides of leaving government, of which there are some as well.
First time being fired?
Probably, actually. Yeah. Probably was, yeah.
I was fired once.
Yeah, when were you
I
fired?
worked in a cocktail bar and someone said, we're going to have to let you go. I said, go where? No, we're firing you. It was really uncomfortable.
Well, that was the same.
Nice.
That was the same phrase that Keir used on me. We're going to have to let you go. I'm going to have to let you go. Yeah.
Foreign Office, where
yeah.
you go.
Yeah. No, I knew I was going completely.
Okay,
yeah.
of course. But we now where we are. Neil Kinnock's backing you.
He is.
That's I think the only former leader or to declare for a candidate.
Well, Ed Miliband as well, who's also backing me. Yes, but because he's still a cabinet member, so people see them as a current cabinet member. Yeah, no, I mean, I've known Neil for a long time. Yeah. Someone I greatly admire and respect, and you know, he was one of the reasons I first joined the Labour Party in 1989. Yeah. So it's a real honour. Yeah.
Do you feel sort of sorry for Bridget Phillipson? I say sorry because she's behind in the polls. You're furrowing your brow because you think it's all to play for, do you? You're seen to be the favourite to win, you see. Well,
no one's cast a vote yet, and so it's really important to remember that. And no, I don't feel sorry for Bridget at all. I think Bridget's been a really good education secretary, and I hope she'll continue to do that, whatever happens. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You did say on the stage last week you'll provide copy for right-wing newspapers.
Yeah, which I thought was a bit
was
a bit unnecessary, really. I don't think that's been the spirit of this campaign. Actually, I've tried to be, you know, very positive about what I've got to offer, what this campaign is about, and I think party members have responded to that. So I think Project Fear won't play very well for people.
She said that, I think, because you're not after a job in government, are you? If you get it, you'll be 100% full time for the members. You said on stage last week.
Absolutely. Look, this is a different job now because David Lammy is the Deputy Prime Minister. The Prime Minister appointed him to that job. So the role as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party is pure and simple a party role. It's not recognised in government as anything. And I want to do that political job full time, working across government, working across the top of the party to help us get into a better situation than the one we're in.
The members more.
Listen, be that bridge with the members, because I think when we listen to the broad voices across our movement, who are, at the end of the day, they're connected in our communities, they're connected to our workplaces, we make better decisions and we're a better version of ourselves.
Evolve, don't they? I think you can get capture, can't you, in government? You're surrounded by officials, you lose connections with where you've come from and what people who support Labour want to happen.
Exactly. I think I'd be outside the constraints of government, you know, not just time constraints, but collective agreement, you know, all the bureaucracy that comes with that. And I think having that now actually is a real virtue to that. I think last time we were in government, if we'd had someone who was full-time on the sort of party side of things, we would have been able to renew ourselves better in government than perhaps we were able to do. So.
Yes. Yeah, you want to maybe work hard with that. Of course, that's why Tom Watson wants to scrap the role, thinks you'll be a difficult individual within the party because you might be against some government policies.
I'm not sure he thinks that now. I have spoken to Tom. I've spoken to Tom. But no, I mean, look, I think that's a point of view. But I really think there's a real virtue. We need to get some politics back into the room, back into the conversation. We need to tell a stronger story about our values, about who we are, who we're governing for, what the purpose of this Labour government is. That's what I know a lot of your viewers would say is, I don't know who the Labour government is. Like, what are they for? Who are they for? Are they for me? Because I don't recognise that.
We know you're not the Tory party, but what are you for?
Exactly. And we know you're not Nigel Farage, but what are you for? Stop going on about Nigel Farage. So I want to really help get some of that right.
Yeah, and so two-child benefit gap being a case in point this autumn, that should be lifted.
I absolutely should be lifted, and as a matter of urgency, because it really is not just the right thing to do. It would lift 500,000 children out of poverty, which is the right thing to do, but it would also, I think, give a much clearer sense of purpose, of moral purpose, of a Labour government who is interested in helping those who can't afford to get by.
And critics who say, well, that rewards people who have children and can't afford to have them. You'd say back to that?
Well, look, there's still, I think what people forget is there's actually still an overall benefit cap. So you can lift the two-child benefit cap so that we're not just punishing the overall amount that people receive. So large families would still have kind of limits around that. There would still be a cap on that. But this is about, you know, supporting children and families, you know, through no fault of their own, who are going to school. I mean, there's kids around here, you know, I've been to go to schools around here all the time, who go to school in a Matalan pair of wellies as their main footwear because they're £1 and that's what they can afford. And they go to those in the summer. That's what they're wearing to school.
And the parents can't afford any.
They can't afford any other shoes. They can't afford uniform. And that is just wrong in this century.
We're in a pub, of course. No one's listening. Is Angela Rayner backing you?
There won't. Obviously, there's lots of people listening. Look, Angela's a really good friend of mine, and I'm very, very, very sorry to see her out of government and not doing this job anymore, because I thought she was a giant of our movement and a very effective minister as well.
She's married from leaving school at 16 as a single mum, pregnant single mum.
Incredible story, but also massively underestimated for a lot of her life. And I saw up close in the last 15 months what an immense minister she was. She had a big legislative programme. She had a big agenda, from employment rights to renters' rights to, you know, more social and affordable housing.
And community work, of course.
Yeah, and she did it all brilliantly. She had a really clear agenda, and I think it's a lesson for a lot of other ministers. When you've got a really clear agenda and you know what you're doing and who you're doing it for, you're more successful. And I thought she did that really well.
She fell down eventually on the issue of tax and paying a tax right. We should obviously change that next time, wouldn't she?
I think she didn't mean to do that. She sort of tried to act in good faith, but she does hold herself to very high standards. And I think when she realised that, you know, she hadn't paid the right amount, that she had to go.
She'll be back.
I hope she will. I mean, I really want to hear from Angela. I want to hear her voice. I want to hear what she's got to say. You know, she's a very important figure in politics, and we don't have enough figures like Angela, you know, that people know. They know who she is. They know what she's about. They know what she stands for. They know where she's coming from. And I think politics is all the poorer for not having her in it.
We're speaking in Manchester last week, the terrible attack at the synagogue, of course. How has that affected local people here? I mean, shocking, obviously. But
absolutely shocking. And, you know, every cab driver, every person on the bus will talk to you about it, because, you know, I think it's really shaken, you know, communities around here. Everybody knows someone who lives nearby or who's affected or knows someone. So absolutely sort of shocking event. And I continue to stand with the Manchester Jewish community, as I always have done.
Obviously, there was a ceremony last week. David Lammy was booed.
He was.
Why is that? Were you there for that?
I was at that vigil, yeah. Well,
you can't. People are upset. They can have their say. David Lammy just had to accept what was happening there and do his speech afterwards. But why are people booing the Deputy Prime Minister? I
think because he represents the establishment. He represents government, and I think people in the Jewish community feel that this was something that was a long time coming. And I know why they feel like that, because we've had lots of incidents and we've seen a rise in anti-Semitism. And so, you know, there's an anger about that, and people a sense of, you know, saying enough is enough. Do more.
Because Labour got dogged by this anti-Semitism stuff, didn't they, under the previous leader? That was difficult to shake off.
Yeah, and we have as a Labour Party.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. And, you know, we have done, as a party, but, you know, I think particularly in the last couple of years, the way in which British Jews have been blamed and sort of targeted for what's happening in the Middle East, that is wrong. You know, we you know, and I think educated, decent people often conflate those things, and we've got to be really clear that is wrong. That is racist to do so.
Israel foreign policy separate to the Jewish community.
Absolutely, that is
different.
It's completely different, and to conflate those things, you know, is racist. You are making assumptions about someone because of their ethnicity, and that's wrong.
And I'll be linking, again, that's equating the same thing, linking the recognition of Palestine with increasing pressure on the Jewish community here. That shouldn't be the case, should it?
No, and I profoundly support a two-state solution. I always have. And what that involves is a recognised, viable, self-governing Palestine alongside a safe and secure Israel.
By the way.
We've got to have both. We've got to have both. And so we've got to work to both and stand up for both of those things in order to get this lasting peace, which hopefully is now a bit nearer.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
I've got to ask you about the remark you made to Tim Montgomery on Question Time earlier this year. He said on the TV show, have you seen this Channel 4 documentary on grooming gangs? And you said, didn't you, oh, we want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we? You must regret that remark.
I absolutely regret that remark, and I, immediately and quickly said so, and was really sorry about that. And I'm glad you've asked me, because I know it was a point of discussion on your channel a lot.
It was.
And what really upset me was to think that I had upset people, that people had taken that as somehow dismissing the issue, which absolutely was not what I was seeking to do or my intention, because there is not a fibre in my body that thinks we should not hold to account absolutely publicly and robustly those responsible for the terrible grooming gangs, that we need to also expose and hold to account those that aided and assisted or covered up or turned a blind eye. And, those victims have suffered long enough. And, I really want to be clear that that is something I've always stood for and I strongly support.
It's an issue in Greater Manchester, looking at the figures from Greater Manchester Police, nearly 1,100 suspects, over 700 victims. It's everywhere. It's a national problem.
It's a national problem. It has been particularly acute here in Greater Manchester. And now I after the general election, I now represent part of Oldham as well, which has faced many of these issues as well. I'm actually pleased with the Greater Manchester Police. I think have been, in recent years, have been more of an exemplar. They've reopened now many of these cases, and we're seeing, Rochdale gangs recently, others now coming to account for historic grooming gang activity, and that's as it should be. And I think that other police forces can now follow what Greater Manchester prosecutors and police have done.
Why do you say dog whistle in that moment? Of course, you're under pressure, it's on TV, and you're trying to have a debate with somebody. I mean, it's quite a thing to say, isn't it?
It is, and I didn't mean it as a racist thing, actually, and I'm really, really sorry about that. Look, we were actually having a debate about other things. That's what I was trying to call out. We were having a conversation about local government funding, and the politicisation of that issue was what I was seeking to call out, and I did it in a wrong way, and a way that really gave off a very opposite view to the view that I hold, and I am sorry about that.
Do you worry about turn of language? Last week, the PM told me for GB News about the Farage boats. It's interesting, they're using that word Farage boats, and that set the headlines across the conference. We need to moderate our language, don't we, in politics?
I think we do, because politics has become incredibly personalised. It's become incredibly sort of fractured and divisive. And actually, we've got a great responsibility on our shoulders to show people that mainstream politics is a force for good. And so that is not just what we're delivering, what we're doing, it's also how we conduct ourselves and how we behave.
Farage in that? I mean, I know that Keir Starmer told me you can sleep under a Tory government, but not a Reform government. Are you in the same camp as him?
Well, I mean, I profoundly disagree with Nigel Farage in a lot of what he says and what he thinks about things. But we have to kind of debate those things, and I'd be happy to debate those things with Nigel Farage. And he's gaining traction and gaining support because people are disillusioned with mainstream politics being able to actually change their everyday lives.
A trust issue, isn't it, really?
It's trust. It's also, people wanting a greater sense of a sort of purpose and that we are here to change their lives for the better. And we've got to prove that model now. And I think there's a massive responsibility on our shoulders to do that.
And just finally, Sir Keir Starmer, he can get his poll ratings going, can he? Or perhaps your old guy, Ed Miliband, could be a better leader. You can't view it as campaign manager.
I'm not anybody's guy, Chris. You know that.
Sorry.
I'm my own woman. I'm not anybody's guy. I'm my own woman. But look, no, I mean, I don't write off any elections. We've got big elections in May next year. I think as deputy leader, day one, I'll be absolutely focused on how we can turn that around. We can't try and out-reform. We've got to tell a more compelling story about what we think is really wrong with this country and how we're going to fix it. And for me, that starts with getting the economy working for ordinary working people in somewhere like those who come to the Strawberry Duck every day for a drink, who at the moment don't feel that the country and the economy works for them at all.
Well, we'll come back again. Good to see you in a year's time.
Yes, absolutely.
Another drink of Strawberry Duck.
Thank you.
We're joined today on Chopper's Political Podcast. Lucy Powell there. She's off to the bar now. Right, I'm on my way back to the party conference in central Manchester. I really hope I haven't missed anything. James Cleverly, welcome to Chopper's Political Podcast. Great to have you here. You've been back on the back benches. You're back in the shadow cabinet. Are you enjoying it?
I am. I was really looking forward to going toe-to-toe with Angela Rayner. And obviously that didn't happen. She's a real firebrand, well respected, loved in the Labour Party.
The Tories always like Angela Rayner. Jacob Rees-Mogg liked her.
Yeah, because she's
got to admire her.
You've got to admire her backstory. She was really punchy. Steve Reed, I'm sure he's a nice enough guy, but it's not the same. Chris, it's not.
Yeah, he's a former councillor and from the South London, but it's a different dynamic. I'd imagine.
Yeah.
You're back here at the party conference. Now, of course, when I was last here in Birmingham that time, I was part of the team coordinating all your debates and your question and answer from the members. I mean, you could have been leader. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Could have. I gave it a go. I did really well. I don't think I'd look back and have done anything different. It didn't work. It didn't.
No.
I didn't get it, and I'm not going to cry myself to sleep every night.
What would you do differently? You probably wouldn't go to Boris Johnson's book launch where MPs would be making a mess of the nominations back at base.
Well, no, because people forget. Look, retrospectively, people look at things and go, "Oh, that was a mistake." If I'd got it, people would have gone, "That was an act of genius." Because look, all Boris supporting MPs were there. There were about 20 or so MPs at the event that I got to talk to face just before.
Who may have come round. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I don't regret what I did. And Kemi won fair and square, and I think she's doing a really good job at this conference. I think she's really landed it at this conference.
At the conference she has, the polls aren't doing so well though. Your party's gone backwards under her leadership.
It was never going to be easy. We had our worst election defeat ever. The voters are not going to forgive us overnight, and we made mistakes. Kemi, I and others have been open about the fact we made mistakes. It's going to take a while for us to regain that trust. But regaining trust is absolutely key, which is why we're making sure that every single proposal is properly worked out, properly costed, what public spending we're going to cut in order to pay for it. That's why our proposals aren't falling apart as soon as we've said them, like the ones coming out of reform, or indeed like the policies coming out of...
We'll come to those in a second, but 14 years of not doing it, that's the question that will always be answered by viewers. They always say, you're 14 years, why you even need to listen to you. That's what they tell us on the channel all the time.
Yeah, but you got to remind people that we got re-elected a number of times during those 14 years. So if people were grumpy with us for 14 years, why did they keep voting for us? Yeah, firstly. Secondly, we achieved a huge amount, stabilising the economy after Labour, supporting Ukraine, reducing unemployment, all that stuff. Now, but of course,
COVID, don't forget that.
Yeah, the fastest vaccine rollout, unlocking quicker than anybody else. So yes, things went wrong, but plenty of things went right. But there's no point in us looking back, because what we got to look forward to is how we're going to repair the broken economy that we will inherit from Labour, and how we will convince people that although they might like some of the stuff they're hearing out of Nigel Farage, none of it is deliverable. And I think deep down people know that.
What I've been impressed by, I think it started very well, this conference, with that ECHR withdrawal report, that the legal judgment or advice, whatever you describe it, legal advice, 180 pages long. Had a different candidate won last year, and had that candidate, let's say it's Robert Jenrick, said we're leaving the ECHR straight away, the party would have split. The party hasn't split. No one's resigned in the shadow cabinet meeting last Friday. They approved it. It's held its own. I think that does justify Kemi Badenoch saying, wait for me to get this thing sorted. The party is still the same party as it was before the conference, with all these new policies being announced. That is a good thing.
That is
a building block to start from.
Yeah, and so you got to ask a question. You got to ask yourself a question with difficult, contentious, but really important issues like the ECHR, like the
Climate Change
Act, etc., etc. Do you want to make this a purity test and a point of division, or do you want to bring the party with you? Kemi's made a clear decision. She wants to bring the party with her, and that means having evidence for her decision. Yes. She's an engineer by tradition. She's an evidence-based decision maker, and that Wolfson report was really compelling.
That is a foundational document for the manifesto.
That's right.
We thought you might jump ship, by the way. But did you? Yeah, we did. Well, no, it was why do you thought you won't be happy with this? But you've read the report, and were you convinced by the report?
Yes.
Have you changed your mind on this?
No, I haven't changed my mind. And this is where I get really frustrated when people say, oh, this is what you think. And I'm like, well...
Tell our listeners now, right?
Well, so the point I said is, if you want to know what I think, listen to what I've said. And what I've always said is, leaving the ECHR is not a silver bullet. This is where Farage has got it wrong. Because his argument to your viewers is, we leave the ECHR, all our problems go away. Nonsense. I've always said it's not a silver bullet. If we do it, we need to do it right. We need to understand that on its own, that won't be enough. 180-page report basically saying, and I paraphrase, but only a bit, leaving the ECHR is necessary for us to be able to get a grip of the things we need to get a grip. But it's not a silver bullet. No. There are other things we need to do, and we're going to have to do it properly and professionally. That's what I wanted to see. I was reassured, and I think the arguments are compelling.
Part of the plan is to deport 150,000 illegal arrivals here to where they came from, or a third country. Now, you were against the Rwanda plan, weren't you?
No.
Okay,
tell us what you've got to listen to what I said. What I said about Rwanda.
It's in private what you said about them.
No, what I said.
You used a rude word.
I did, and I don't know what your threshold for rude words is on the podcast, chauffeur. But the point I said is what I perceived to be an obsession with talking about Rwanda, to the exclusion of everything else, was batshit crazy. That's the point. I've said it now. It's out there. That's the point I made, because again, Rwanda was not a silver bullet. It was part of a mix of proposals, and actually, I would have got flights off the ground. We would have won because those few and they were volunteers. They were to prove that Rwanda was a safe country for asylum seekers. And that was the legal point that had been hampering us for so long.
The root evidence suggests that the effort to get Rwanda to happen meant that the backlog built up in the hotels. That's what Labour's saying. Maybe that's not proving what you're saying, actually.
Well, no, that's not quite right, because I closed half of the asylum hotels, and then they started going back up again under Labour. But again, this is the point. And I've always said you mustn't obsess about just one thing in the hope that will solve all your problems.
Yes.
You've got to address all the issues that need to be addressed.
Yes. Nothing really this week on tax. which is interesting. You wanted to abolish stamp duty, I remember, last year, didn't you?
Well, I would still love for that to happen, but again, the discipline that Mel, as Shadow Chancellor, has imposed upon all of us.
Frustrating you, I think.
Look, yes, look, it is frustrating because, and you know what? I think Mel would love to go around saying we're going to cut that tax, cut that tax, cut that tax, but we are the party of sound money. When Margaret Thatcher, look, there's a lot of tributes to Margaret Thatcher. It's century anniversary.
Do you mind that, by the way? Is it a bit overwhelming?
Well,
A bit of,
I think
we're looking at some clothes of her behind.
But look, I'm a Thatcherite. I got into politics because of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, so I don't mind it at all. I quite like it.
A bit haunting.
But the point is, she was absolutely right. The Conservative Party is the party of sound money. Mel is reminding us that we are the party of sound money. And the economic incoherence that we're hearing from Labour, Lib Dems and Reform, that's not us. We have got to make the books balance. So of course we'd like to cut tax. Of course we would. Of course we would with Conservatives. But the point is,
when you can afford to.
We've got to do it when we can afford to. We can't have a run on the pound.
No.
We can't have the bond markets in revolt, because that, and I fear that's going to happen after the budget.
When she does.
Yeah.
We're hearing from Kemi Badenoch shortly. You're running away to hear her speak. She'll be saying we're going to half the money we get from savings will go on spending down debt. That sounds very prudent.
Again,
pretty boring, by the way.
This is the thing.
But prudent.
Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things. And before we went on air, before we went on air, we were talking about like cooked breakfasts at a hotel. The bottom line is, deep down, we all know that if you have a big cooked breakfast every single day, you're going to put on a lot of weight. And if you don't want to put on weight, you've got to eat less. It's boring, but it's true. And it's the same with regards to the economy. You've got to do the right things in the right order.
You've got to run off soon. What are your personal plans? Here's my theory about James Cleverly. Do you want to hear it?
Of course I want to hear it.
No one's listening. It's only you, me, chatty anyway.
Just you and me. Let's ignore the tens of thousands of people.
Local government secretary, I reckon you want to have a run to take on Sadiq Khan in London. Fourth term Khan is going to be ripe for someone like a strong former deputy mayor of London. You know Boris. You know, you can be inspired by him. You know,
the Mayor of London is an incredibly important job, and Sadiq Khan is making an absolute catastrophic job of doing. And
you know how it works.
Yeah, and it really, really angers me. And you know me, Chris. You've known me for a very long time. I'm not easy to anger, but it really angers me. The incompetence and the arrogance, and it has an effect on my Essex constituency. London has a massive, massive impact. Crime rates in London impact my constituents when they commute into work. And crime rates in London are heading in the wrong direction.
Braintree, of course.
Braintree, my constituency. A lot of my constituents work in London, commute into London. The nighttime economy, when those people want to go for a quick drink after work and the bars and pubs are closing down because of his incompetence, that affects my people. And his failure to deliver houses in London is pushing that problem into the home counties, including my Essex.
That's his failures there for the record, right? Yourself.
Well, look,
you could overturn that.
Look,
you could do better.
Look, it's not about me. I want a Conservative Mayor of London, of course.
Strong candidate.
And I'm going to make sure that we've got a credible argument going into those elections. I want to make sure we get a Conservative as Mayor of London. But the bottom line is that I love my constituency, and that is where my heart is. And and I know people.
It's not a no, is it?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say.
Because it is.
Look,
yes or no?
It would be.
Just say I'm looking at it.
Look, it's a really important job. It would be foolish for me to say, "Oh, there are no circumstances where I'd ever look at it." But as I say, my heart is in Essex.
History says that when the government goes left, London goes right. That's the Boris idea. When he won, of course, against the head.
But also, Boris stepped in with London going badly wrong. Remember Ken Livingstone, his dismissive attitudes about knife crime and that kind of stuff. Boris got in, got a grip of the crime rate, got a grip of the economy, brought international investment into London, got stuff built, delivered the Olympic Park, delivered Crossrail. I mean, when Conservatives run stuff, whether it be in London or when we ran Birmingham or Ben Houchin and Tees, right, we get stuff done in the way that Labour mayors
don't. Isn't it? Great platform if you get the job.
You're not going to drop it, are you?
No. And of course you want to go on a bigger job after that. This history shows that you get a bigger job. This issue, we're in Birmingham, in Manchester, issue of race. Were you happy with what Rob Jenrick said about Handsworth? He brought race up, didn't he? I
mean, he did. And look,
he's saying he wasn't trying to be racist, is what he was accused of being racist. But how do you feel?
Yeah, so I was confronted with someone saying, "Oh, Rob has said this," and just like a one line. And what I said is, hang on a second, I want to know the broader, and the broader context. He was making a point about integration, which is exactly the point I was making in my speech. Look, I've got African heritage.
Yes.
I have got we've got a party leader who's got African heritage. We had a prime minister, Indian heritage. The Conservative Party and this country has been incredibly successful in integrating communities. If we lose that, we are all worse off. And I think that's the point that Rob was trying to make.
Let's integrate better.
We must integrate better. And when you've got situations, sadly, where you've got clusters of streets of people who have lived in the UK for decades, sometimes generation, but the women still don't speak English. That really worries me in terms of, in terms of protecting those people and making sure that, those women, those kids have got the opportunities this country can afford. If you can't even...
So you can have the conversation as a white man, have that conversation too.
Of course you can. We have to have this conversation without lazy accusations of racism being thrown around as soon as you raise, which are sensitive subjects, but we can't run away from it.
We see on GB News all the time, the racist card is just to shut down conversation, and that's not right.
I've been accused. When I've raised some of these issues in the past, I've been accused of racism, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah, quite. Just finally, I got 2 minutes left for you, girl, to hear Kemi Badenoch speak. What's the path to victory in 2029? You can see it opening up here, can't you?
Yes, you can.
For the first time, I can see it opening up, I think.
Like you're spot on.
Possibly.
It's
narrow one.
There's no point being unrealistic. There's no point in being arrogant. It is a mountain that we have got to climb, and it is going to be tough, and we are still very much in the foothills. But we can see the route. That regaining our reputation for economic competence, having a plan to get people on the housing ladder, just like Macmillan did, just like Thatcher did, real rejuvenation of our economy and our society, proudly British. And I was at your party, the Penny Union Jack at that party there, proudly British, play by the rules, be rewarded for your own hard work, sound money, secure borders. This is a very traditional Conservative sales pitch, but I think the appetite for that, I think the appetite for that is definitely there. And we've got to prove to the British people that we are the only party that takes this stuff seriously and can deliver.
And there are hurdles to get past. May's the local elections, that's huge.
As I say, it is not going to be easy. No one pretends it's going to be easy.
Hold your nerve is what you're thinking.
Well, what's the alternative?
You as leader.
No.
Because Kemi Badenoch climate challenge next month.
No. Let me make this absolutely unambiguously clear. Chopping and changing leader is completely counterproductive.
I'm not sure it'll help the polls much.
I don't think it would make a difference as well. You've just said, look, if we compare the criticism of Kemi when she first got the job to how she is now, she was absolutely smashing Keir Starmer all over the park. Over the last
1 or 2 PMQs, not a lot of them.
Well, that's the point. But the most recent ones, she has been really dominant. This conference, really professional. As you say, you can now see, and if we'd had this conversation 6 months ago, you would have said, James, I just can't see it. I cannot see a route to go. You are now saying that you can see a route to government. And that's the momentum we have to continue. And stopping and having an internal row is not going to help.
And it comes down to trust. We go back to the first question, don't we? Is how do you get them to trust you?
Exactly.
And that's the big challenge you got.
That is the big challenge we got. And we're up for it.
And you'll be selling it.
Yeah.
James Cleverly, thank you for joining us today, Manchester, and off to hear the big speech.
Indeed, looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that.
So that was going to be the end of the podcast, but then an hour later, Kemi Badenoch announces axing stamp duty. So I went to find out from James Cleverly what on earth was going on. Chris Hope, GB News, of course. When did you find out about the cutting of stamp duty?
Well, look, this is stuff that we've been discussing for ages. You know, I've been passionate about this. I think you asked me about it
about half an hour ago.
About half an hour ago, and I was itching. But of course, this was a really, really important message we put across. And the fact is, everything that we have been and everything that Kemi's announced today and that we've announced through this conference has been stress tested. We've been grilled by her and her team. Mel's crunched the numbers. We know where the money is coming from those savings, from the civil service savings, from the welfare budget savings, from that list that Kemi ran.
I should explain, of course, to viewers and listeners, this is a policy which you supported. And you ran on to be leader, so you must be delighted.
And look, this is something that we've been discussing for a very, very long time, but nothing that we announced at this conference was just a kind of a throwaway comment. The numbers have been crunched and crunched again and checked and double-checked. Obviously, I'm really, really pleased.
How much will it cost?
Look, it will cost 9 billion, but we've identified the big pockets of public spending where we are going to reduce expenditure. And as Kemi said, it's going to be an even split between getting sound money, getting the deficit back under control, and easing the taxes which are stifling economic activity. And the thing about stamp duty, and she outlined this in the speech, when you take away that stamp duty, when people start moving, they also start spending money on painting and decorating. They buy white goods, they buy furniture. It stimulates the market. And a lot of that expenditure is in the high street, which we are also easing some of the tax burden from.
So it feels like you've now got a slate of policies to sell to the country. You're back in the fight for those votes.
Absolutely. And look, Kemi took a gamble. Kemi took a gamble. She took the time to really make sure we were getting it right. In that 12-month period, others have been trying to squeeze us out of the political arena. Today, that time investment has paid off. When other parties' policies fall apart within minutes, we know these stack up. I was going to spend the last 12 months crunching the numbers.
James Cleverly, thank you. I tweet at Critiphobe on X. Do tweet me or email me, chopper@gbnews.uk. If you enjoyed this podcast like James Cleverly clearly did, do leave us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That helps other people to find the show and join in the fun. If you thanks to the great team of colleagues behind the podcast, Mick Booker and Jeff Marsh back at HQ, and in the busy bee city of Manchester, the worker bee, Rebecca Nunes, and the editor of the show, of course, the other worker bee, George McMillan. We thank you so much for their work. And thanks again for listening. If you've got more Chopper in your life, and they certainly do, well, not all the time, catch us during the week on GB News with your latest political updates and stories, and on our website, gbnews.com. But from the buzzing city of Manchester, it's time for me to buzz off. Cheerio!